Right, we had to come back, and thanks for joining us on Carp Files. We'll be busy getting a bit better acquainted to feeder fishing using the Browning rods. Today I'm actually using the Browning hybrid rods, which is very well priced. Lovely little 11-foot rods, ideal for a small dam like this. Now, last week you guys saw we're struggling to get a bite. Firstly, the conditions were tough with the fronts coming, or the heat waves coming through, and in general the fish wasn't really on the bite. But we made one fundamental mistake, which I always tell people not to do. We did it, and there again the proof was in the pudding. We didn't get information on the venue. It was our first time here. We didn't speak to the owner in time. We only spoke to him late in the afternoon, where he gave us the information that these dams get fed by fishy pellets, all right, fish meal pellets, which makes, in tough conditions like that, the obvious or only chance you will have is to use the natural food, which they're used to. So today we're here to test that theory, and there was quite a bit of rain the last 2 days. It's 5 days after we've been here, 4 days. It's 4 days later. So we're going to try again. We're going to change a bit of the technique. We're going to adapt our feeds, one rod with Browning's fishy type of flavors. I'm using monster crab today. And on the other side, we're going to fish just the natural fish pellets and food they actually give you. I'm going to alternate a bit between herring and just normal putting the bait on the hook. Between the two rods, we're again going to feed two areas and see if we can have better results today. Now, out of this whole excursion, there's one lesson to be learned. Do your homework on the dam. Speak to people who have fished it or fish it regularly, or speak to the owner or the caretaker of the dam as to what normally works here, how the fish behaves, because every venue and every dam is different. Even in saltwater, different areas work different, even though it's the same species. You need different conditions and different food sources which the fish prefer in that area as a general basis. You start with a foundation, you find that basis, and then you start working from there and you adapt. That way you find the pattern quicker and get the results quicker than starting blindly and just sitting and trying whatever you think might work. So let that be a lesson to everybody, and it will make a big change in your fishing. Okay, now what we're doing is we're doing a combination mix. We took some of the brown bread paste they make here, we mixed it in here. We took some fish pellets, we put it in, and then this betaine mussel mix, which is the closest to the smell of what they're using, the Browning Champion's Choice. Now, as I explained on previous episodes, this feed is actually fantastic, how quick it binds and how strong the smells are. And always worth mentioning, the nutritional value they've got in their feed, if you read on the back of the pack, is phenomenal. So what I'm doing is I'm going to condition the fish a bit with something that's familiar and bulk it up a bit with some other feed we've added to this. Now, there's the betaine mussel mix and then the lethal feeder as well, which is a very strong fishy flavor, which we're going to use as combination with the pellets and the bread paste. There's definitely more activity on the dam. Been watching the water, there's a lot more bubbles. And why I say there's a lot more bubbles is when fish are feeding, especially carp on the bottom, they do push out the air that generates because of the rotting bottom and heat and fermentation, and they loosen those air bubbles that comes to the surface. So you can see in some spots, if you make a feeding area and you wait a day or maybe sometimes a couple of hours, you can definitely see the carp start feeding there. Now all you do with this feed, a quick mix, make sure your density is right. If it's too wet, just add a bit. Just to get it to the right. And what I love about this type of feed, opposed to what I'm used to, is if this dries out now, I just add a bit of water and it goes back exactly to the original form. Obviously these buckets help, the Browning feed buckets, keeping all your dry products in the bottom and on top you've got this bowl to work in with a lid on top to keep it from drying out too quickly. Keeps it nice and fresh pretty much all day. So there we've got a, see if you push it now, a nice feed. I think I want to add more. Okay, what I'm doing now is I'm making little feeder balls, which I'm going to use the slingshot just to put them on the right here, the area I want to cover this side. So more or less the same size each one of them, so that you know exactly where to pull to get it in exactly the same spot. We've seen some feeding bubbles on the right, and there's a bit of an inlet there by the stairs behind me where the water normally after the rain runs in, which is a natural feeding area. Fish obviously lies there, especially after it rained or there's water coming in, to see what washes down for them to eat. So that will be a logic area, especially if you don't know the bottom of the dam. Where there's channels, small dam like this doesn't really make that big a difference because the overall depth is very similar. There's no especially deep areas except in the back there where the guys dive that we're aware of. So another thing is when it's colder weather or a front, that's not a bad area to go and try. You're going to wait much longer for a bite, but nothing wrong in trying that area. Same with these smaller dams, and dams that get a lot of anglers and a lot of pressure, gets used to the sound of food falling on the surface, and they go check it out. Once they discover it is food, then that sound becomes synonymous for them with food falling. So you'll do a couple of balls to get it going. When they get there, they'll see there's food, and then keep on feeding your area the whole time, every half an hour or so with a couple of balls, so they get used to the sound and they go to the area and feed. In between, your hook will obviously lie disguised, and once they get comfortable with the feeding, they'll suck in that hook, and that's the whole purpose of fishing, or the whole objective of fishing. Okay, now these slingshots are available in the specimen section of most stores, where Corda's got a very nice one. I've still got my old one, which I used years ago. And the idea is to concentrate on how far you pull it, your angle where you're aiming, to get them in the same spot. Okay, on my left hand rod I'm going to use a method feeder, and I've actually decided to use a bigger hook today with the size of that fish I caught here a couple of days, or hooked here a couple of days ago. And I'm going to fit my bait on the herring. Also we switched to braid purely because of all the crabs. If you remember last week, every so often our hook links got bitten off by the crabs, and most of the bites we received were crabs. Okay. Then I'm going to put a monster crab chewy on my hair, and then I'm going to use the brown bread dough they make here, or paste, around that, so there's something solid underneath it should they start sucking. And that's what we want. We want carp to suck. These chewies are nice and soft. It's not like specimen angling meant to go in to lie there for hours or even days. It's a quick change bait. The concentration. Now what I'm going to do, that's hanging there, and then I'm going to take some of the dough available at Pick n Pay at the venue. They make this brown bread dough, which they purely take fish meal pellets, work it into the dough, I'm going to take a bit of a ball so that we can have a ball. The carp can have a ball at least. Now what I'm going to do is you take this little cage and you block it in the bottom with a bit of your feed, a bit thicker. Got a bit of the bread paste there. Okay, now that's blocked. Then what I'm going to do, if I can find it, is use some pellets. Put some pellets in there. Handful of pellets. And then a little plug for the top, thinner so it can open quicker. Just so that it doesn't fall out in the air. That's the only purpose for the top. But must go soft quickly so that those pellets can start falling out. You need to really be confident with your rods, your reel, your line. Like here, we're using the hybrids, the Browning hybrid 11-foot rods. It's actually power pellet wagglers. Can be used for feed as well because it's got tips, the interchangeable tips, which I think is 1.5, 2 and 3 pound on these particular rods. So you can decide how light, the lighter you fish, the lighter the tip you'll use, and the heavier or bigger you're going to fish, the heavier the tip will be. These little reels are fantastically balanced. I'm very impressed with them. They mid-class price range. The Ultima, the Browning Ultimas, but fantastic little drag systems, and which is the most important in any type of fishing. And then the balance and the line lay on these reels are precise. That's another thing I always have a look out for when I put line on the reel, is to look in the natural line lay out of the box, that you don't have to adjust with washers. So here I've got it. I'm using a pod today, just a normal specimen pod. Putting 2 rods, one to the right, feeding area, one to the left. Let's see, out of what we've learned on the first day and the mistakes we've made, if we can do better today. Maybe the fish has got a surprise up their sleeves or fins for us. Just a lot of slack on this rod. Now it feels stuck again. Okay, well that, as I pulled it in, a big crab holding onto the cage. So it shows us that most of the movement on our rods are crabs. We need to find the formula or where the fish are feeding. They're obviously not on our feeding areas yet. And that's where I have to keep on testing, try different things to see how we're going to get them to feed. Got a nice one finally on here. Don't want to give it too much slack. I know. Awesome. Felt like it broke me off on something, but I think I'm still fine, but it's gone behind that stump. Going around something, it's damaging this line badly. It's got the biggest mouth in size ratio. It's a very long fish, not very fat. But look at the mouth. It's massive. You'll find that on a 30, close to a 40-pound carp. You'll find a mouth that size. Now, I don't know if you guys could see the rod, but I can't put enough emphasis on how amazing that fight was. 6-pound line on the feeder rod. It's a 13-foot, very small hook with a cage, and I was feeding pellets. And on my hook bait I had brown bread with pellets mixed. And look at this fish, guys. What a strong fish. Now, there were 3 factors that helped me here. And I must give credit to that. The drag on that reel, number 1. The 6-pound, that's Dawa sensor line, which I'm sold with it. And yeah, the rest. But this fish gave me a proper fight. Look at that. I reckon about 5 kilos. What a nice fish. Thanks for the best fight I've had in a dam on light tackle. And I got a small little scale here, and I'm going to weight in this net and then just deduct the weight of the net. Okay, it's not liking that. Okay, with the net at 6.4. Okay, the net's very light. 450 grams. Which means this fish is 5.9 kilogram. Chuffed with this. Let's get it back quickly. The net's drying, so I don't want it to dry out too much. Let's flap it over. Okay, big boy. Strong boy. Not that big, but strong. And off he goes, as if nothing. Now, if that fish had to get some body onto it, that would be a 10-kilo fish. The length is there, it just needs a bit of body. My left-hand rod, you can see I've used, like you should with a cage, a much longer link to my hook. So it's not lying close to the cage. When this dissolves a bit, you draw it so that you can pull your hook into the feed, into the pellets. This one we adapted to see if that works, and I'm going to leave it just like that. I'm not going to change it. But bait-wise, also going to use a ball, using a much bigger hook on this and a bigger ball. You guys saw that fish's mouth. That's unbelievable. That thing can swallow tennis balls. So I think slightly bigger baits is the order of the day. And hope the crabs stay on the feeding areas we've made, because we're not going to fish on the feeding areas. We're going to fish just off them. This particular one, I want to put about, say, 5 to 6 meters over my feeding area on the other side. Okay, well, that brings us to the end of the session. We're going to finish up early today. Shoot back. I'll definitely come back here and put a proper session into this now. I would love to fish this overnight, maybe specimen style, light specimen. That last fish going around the trees there or branches in the water. But I think there's surprisingly big fish in this dam. That's not what we expected. We expected to come here, catch those 1.5 kilo fish if we're lucky, and a whole bunch. Instead, very few small fish we saw. All the fish that broke the surface were big fish, and we changed our technique to get some of them. We hooked a very big, the first time we had very big fish that broke us up. Second time around we at least landed one, lost one, but we'll definitely be back, maybe with a slightly heavier tackle. Look at that, just teasing us, some nice big. So thanks for joining us, and next time I think we're going to look for some of the bigger dams and see how we can get a feeding area going on feeder fishing and see what we can catch.